you had some interesting interviews around this time. One of them was Mike Tyson.
Yes.
You said you were full of shit.
Yes, but that was joking. Jokingly, yeah. Mike and I know Mike. He's a good guy. He's fun.
Yeah, I had a Mike Tyson interview that started to go left.
Really?
At one point. Yeah. Zab Judah, the boxer, was doing the primary interview. And I was there kind of supervising it, but I'm like, hey, do you mind if I come and ask a few questions? So a couple questions in, I said, Mike, at the time you were worth hundreds of millions of dollars, hanging out with these street guys. What attracted you to these street guys? And Mike said, what do you mean attracted? And I said, oh, Mike just thought I asked him if he was gay. I think that's how he took it.
You were asking him?
No, you know what I'm saying? I meant hanging out. I'm like, no, well, you're friends with them. I know
you meant by attracted. Why would you want to hang out with them?
Yeah, exactly. But he's like, what do you mean attracted? Here you are, this multimillionaire, and, it seems like you've always been attracted to the guys that are still in the streets to a certain degree. Do you think that's a fair statement?
You think I'm attracted to them?
Well, not attracted to them, but I mean, you like having them around. You're friends with them, and you
think
maintain.
I like having them around?
I'm just asking.
You think I'm friends? What do you think? You think I like having them around?
You just spoke nicely about Zip, so I just thought.
Yeah. You know who these guys are? When you talk, what do you say about me? I'm this big, whatever I am, right? But know who those guys are? Those are the guys that when I'm, whoever I am is a nobody. I'm here. Those are the guys that live in the same building with me. That gives my mother salt or sugar if they need, or milk. They're the same guys. They're the same guys you rob streets with and you went to juvenile detention with. And then you went to boxing, you got locked up, went to boxing. They got locked up, got up and went to the drug business. And then you see them and they know this guy, and then you remember this guy from this time, and you went to school with this guy, and you know this guy, and this guy mother and your guy mother went to school together, and this is the whole family, and then everything do is just what they do. And we just love them and got their back, and I just don't know how we got all these people. I say it all the time, how come I worry about these guys dying? Because these are who we are. Yeah. It's who we are. I don't think they're bad guys. I think they made mistakes.
So now I'm like, and I'm actually in a boxing ring with him. I'm at his gym doing the interview, and like my security's way over there. I'm like, if Mike lunges at me, my security's not gonna make it in time.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there, I have to talk my way out of the situation with an annoyed Mike Tyson. And ultimately, he understood what I was saying.
Yeah.
But Tyson always likes to mess with people.
It's kind of like what is it? The influencer who interviewed the woman and said, "You're a musician." She goes, "I'm not a musician." She goes, "You make music, right?" She's like, "But I'm not a musician." Yeah. But that just shows you kind of how like the homophobia, right?
Yeah.
I
didn't mean it like that. Honestly,
yes.
I really didn't. I didn't.
Yeah.
Mike Tyson's straight. I'm sure of this. You know what I'm saying? Not that there's anything wrong with being gay. I was like, you're hanging out with these guys because he was cool with like a bunch of these guys like Eric Von Zip, infamous street figures, Homo, who 50 Cent thought had shot him. Like there's a lot of street ties with Mike Tyson. So, but yeah, he took it a certain type of way and looked like he was starting to get angry.
And you were scared.
I was definitely scared. Wouldn't you be scared?
Yeah. I had a scary moment with him. Scary moment was not the Don Lemon's full of shit. He was actually like, fake boxing with me and like grabbing me around the neck or whatever. And I'm like, he could break my neck and kill me right now.
Right.
In that same interview. So the scare, I'm like, Mike Tyson, because Mike is a little erratic, right?
Yeah.
But he's actually a big softy, right?
He's a nice guy.
But he can hurt you.
Yeah.
Right?
He's still Mike Tyson.
He's still Mike Tyson. So that was the scary part for me. But I had a similar situation as you, to just talk about the homophobia. This was one of my former coworkers at CNN. I saw her husband somewhere and I'd never met him before. And I said, "Hey," "you're my friend's guy." And he's like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "You're my friend." I said, aren't you married to such and such? And he goes, "Oh, I thought you were talking about some gay shit." And I'm like, "No, you're married to my coworker who is my friend." And it's so weird how people go there and how nervous they are. But usually that tells you something about someone. When someone is that homophobic, that sensitive, something's up.
Something's up.
Because most of the friends I know who are completely, at ease with their sexuality. I have no issues.
Yeah, I've never had an issue about
Yeah.
being gay, straight, whatever. I'm
But it would be a little scary with Mike Tyson.
It would be scary. It was scary with Mike Tyson. Well, you had an interview with one of Bill Cosby's accusers.
Yeah.
And she said that Cosby forced her to perform oral sex.
Yeah.
And you said there are ways not to perform oral sex if you don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And people criticized you for that line of questioning.
Yeah, but they didn't understand the backstory.
Were you talking about your childhood?
Because we were friends. We had developed a relationship and a friendship. And when I'm on the set, when I'm talking to people, it's just there's no difference to me in talking, on television than in person. And I said there are ways. And then she looked at me. She goes, I never thought about that. But Joni and I are friends. And I said, and when I explained it to people, like that's how I got my accuser to, and they were like, and I said, but it may be different for a woman because there's a power dynamic and a strength dynamic or whatever. I totally understand that, but that meant no harm. We were just having a conversation. And by no means, as you know, as a survivor, by no means am I making an excuse for what happened. We're having a conversation. Everybody calm down and relax. She laughed about it. We don't even talk about it to this day because it's over. But people get offended for other people for no reason.
You talked about earlier how when you were growing up, when you look at Black images on TV, you have like JJ on Good Times, who is like a caricature of the culture. But
in Good Times, a family that could never make it. Nothing good ever happened to that family.
James Sr. ended up
James dying, whatchamacallit, Thelma gets married to this basketball player. He's about to go off, and then he trips or somebody, and then he breaks his ankle or whatever happens, and then he loses that. And it's like, can this family ever get a break?
Right. Well, the actor who played James Jr. was like threatening the cast because they kept, do you know about this story?
No.
What's his actual name? I don't want to keep calling him James Jr.
The one who...
he was also in Roots. He played the father in Coming to America.
You mean James Sr.
James Sr., I meant, yeah.
Yeah, you mean James Sr.
James Sr.
The dad, yeah.
The dad.
I know the story that he did not like the storyline. He thought it was,
they weren't focusing on, his son going to college and stuff like that. It was it was like put on the chicken suit and say dynamite.
Right.
He literally threatened the writers to the point where they're like, okay, we got to kill
That's why they wrote him out of the, that's why he died on the show.
That's why he died on the show, exactly. But after that came The Cosby Show. Yeah. And The Cosby Show showed a whole different light on, to middle class and upper class Black families, as well as a different world and everything else like that. So you have this ultra powerful force in the Black community with Bill Cosby, who ultimately ends up being a rapist and, tying it into the whole thing of, interviewing one of his survivors. How do you feel was the effect of that when ultimately Bill Cosby had one of the greatest falls from graces, I think, ever?
Well, two things. Bill Cosby and The Cosby Show in a Different World, that was my life. That was the first time because I grew up in within the shadow of an HBCU, Southern University in Baton Rouge. And so my neighborhood was it was a product of the talented 10th. These were people who were engineers and professors and doctors, and they had lawns with sprinklers and whatever, and they everybody had a Cadillac or something like that, or Lincoln Continental in their driveway, and so that was growing up. That was my growing up. My dad, my real dad, was an attorney, so that was the kind of life that we had. But you did not see that on television.
Right.
So when Cosby did that, obviously it was groundbreaking. We're like, thank you, Bill Cosby. This is fantastic. We're seeing this. We're learning about fraternities and sororities and HBCUs, and it was just fantastic. And then, years later, as you said, Bill Cosby has this huge fall from grace, and it is not at all that different from Diddy.
Oh yeah, very similar actually.
It's very similar, and I mean Diddy is not, it's not seen to be as, sort of
Wholesome?
intellectual. No, it's not. Cosby was an intellectual.
True.
He highlighted education in college and that sort of thing,
Yes.
and it was sort of a black elite.
Yes.
Diddy was like hip hop culture. He was more grounded and rooted to the culture and to the streets.
Mm-hmm.
But he became a mogul and made $1 billion, right? And then so it is a fall from grace, but it's not it's not that different. It was a shock to the system. It was a shock to the system.
Yeah.
But I can't say that. What I will say, it's interesting now that he was let out, right? Like Cosby's out. Cosby went to jail.
Yeah, and it was reversed.
And it was reversed.
For a good reason, honestly.
Look, I don't know about
when it
that.
comes to the law, yeah.
If you're
he should have been prosecuted when he was already given a deal.
Okay.
I'm not talking about morally. I'm talking about legally.
Right. Okay, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But it's interesting did not get much coverage.
When he got released?
When he got released, it wasn't a big deal.
Well,
now, when he went to jail.
You know how the news works, man.
But
people don't want to hear about the cleanup. They want to hear about the wreck.
But remember he went to jail, it was a helicopter shot of him at the house and Camille hugging in the driveway and whatever. And then all of a sudden when he got out, it was just like, okay, it's been reversed and he's out.